Right, so we'll get started. So we're really lucky tonight to get a full sponsorship and a relationship with the PTA and EHS, as well as the Harris Project and the CARE Coalition. We're having this conversation tonight on co-occurring disorders. And, the Harris Project is probably one of the leaders in the field, both in being an advocate and proponent education around this issue, as well as developing curriculum. In fact, we were very fortunate because about a month ago, we had our speaker tonight come to our health classes and actually present on a curriculum that is being piloted by the Harris Project. It's actually being nationally funded, replicated, and they're looking to turnkey it to teachers and educators. Not just across the county, but literally across the country. It's pretty amazing work. I know Stephanie very well now from our conversations over the last several months, and her work is second to none around co-occurring disorders. And I think as we begin to learn and discover sort of the complexities around substance abuse and mental health and supporting our young people, this work is more important than ever. So without taking up any more time, so excited to introduce Stephanie, the founder, sort of the architect of the Harris Project.
Hi everybody. So first I want to thank the CARE Coalition and the PTA and you, because without all of you it wouldn't be possible. And with me tonight is Jeffrey Spencer, who is our new pro-social activity coordinator. I see a young person here, so you're going to be getting the parent presentation. There is a video. It's a little provocative. It doesn't have a curse in it. It's beeped, but I just wanted to prepare you. But if you were doing a lunch and learn, you would get that. So I will say, just to make one little correction, the curriculum was funded through opioid settlement dollars from Westchester County. So this pilot is unlike anything that's happening in the nation. We're working with Partnership to End Addiction on this, and there is no other prevention curriculum around co-occurring disorders anywhere. So the beauty is that both Partnership and the county really wanted the Harris Project, since this has been our sort of focus from the beginning, to own the curriculum. So at the end of this, it will be mine to help kind of spread through the nation. I will share from the beginning that my journey started really at my kitchen table the day that my 19-year-old son Harris died by accidental overdose. Harris had this thing called co-occurring disorders, and once he died I thought, nobody's really ever heard of this. I was a PTA president, I was a school board member in my community in Ardsley, I'm an attorney by training, and my goal really was to reshape the conversation around mental health and substance use. So what you're seeing is very different than what I used to do in the beginning. In the beginning it was a presentation, my story, Harris's story, standing on a stage. With this curriculum it creates an opportunity to turnkey at other places. So there's going to be 1 or 2 videos of me later on. I'm going to keep them in because I think it's important to know what you think. Because if I'm not here and somebody else is showing it, I don't know, in Idaho or something, we need to know that it resonates. So our objectives, we're going to talk about what co-occurring disorders is. We're going to review the common mental health challenges that affect our young people. We're going to talk a little about the common substances of misuse. We're going to talk about risk and protective factors, the pathways through which co-occurring disorders develop, what families can do to support our young people. And I will say, when we got there, the 2 most pivotal conversations for parents, and I think what really makes this different, is our approach to both hosting parties and talking about intergenerational cycles. Vocabulary, because we think it's important for everybody to be on the same page. I'm not a mental health provider, I'm not a substance counselor, I'm a mom with lived experience. So my job and your job is not necessarily to diagnose anybody. So we're talking broadly, a mental health challenge. Those things that people feel and think and what they experience, it may be temporary, it may be the result of like a loss, it could be a young person didn't do well on a test and they're feeling anxious the next time. But when we're really talking about...
So sorry, my apologies.
No worries, no worries. Did we win?
We did win, yay!
So we're talking about broad view of mental health challenges, substance use issues. I will say that for young people, any substance use is potentially a disorder, but we're really talking about the framework. So you have a young person, they went to a party, they binge drank, they came home, they threw their guts up. They realized they're never going to do that again. That doesn't mean they have a substance use disorder. It means that they got into a situation, made a bad decision, they learned a lesson, you're good. So the goal here is to say that it's when your spidey senses are tingling, you're not really sure what's going on. When we're talking about the actual disorders, those are those diagnosable conditions. That's when you might be seeking professional help and support. Co-occurring disorders, what we're really here for. The combination of both a mental health challenge and a substance use issue. I will say that for our young people, it's probably in the 3-session curriculum, like 4 or 5 times, and by the end, we all kind of say it together. Because we really want to embed this in our muscle memory that when you're thinking about co-occurring disorders, it's both mental health and substance use. The video. So, my work was featured in the New York Times in an opinion piece. It was a cover piece. And from that, an advertising firm reached out and said, we want to do a public service campaign with you. What I didn't imagine was that it was a campaign that was going to win 40 international awards. It's very intense, it's very provocative, but we really think that it shows co-occurring disorders through the eyes of a young person in a way that nothing else has. Every single line comes from lived experience. Every single line comes from somebody, either a family member or a young person who's gone through this. So now that the technology is working, I'm going to show you the 3-minute video.
Drink if you've stolen clothes from Lisa's closet. Come on, I know at least one person.
Drink if you have a crush on someone that's not your boyfriend. Drink if you posted a photo I look trash in because you look good in it.
Drink if you have to drink just to be here.
Nice.
Drink if you don't know why you just said that. Drink if no one likes you anyway. Drink if you replay every conversation you had that day in your bed at night. Drink if no one understands what you're so worried about all the time. Drink if you can't go to class without it. Drink if you're pretty sure everybody hates you. Drink if you've stolen your dad's pain meds because drinking doesn't cut it. Drink if you can't escape the thoughts in your head. Drink if you're so anxious it's happening again. Drink if you don't know what you just took. Drink to feel something. To feel nothing. Drink if no one even knows. If you're happy, and you know happiness won't last. If you're depressed, if your mind is racing, if you're tired, if you can't focus on anything, if your mind won't shut the up.
Drink if you're afraid you won't wake up tomorrow. Drink if you don't care.
So everybody starts out thinking this is a fun party, and I watch the expressions, and then I feel you go on the ride. And unfortunately for our young people, nobody wakes up and says, I want to be the problem, I want to use problematically. They really don't see how it begins, and so our goal is to really make sure that they do. So why does mental health matter when you talk about substance use? Almost half of our young people, 13 to 18, have a mental health challenge. The age of onset, 50% by the age of 14, 75% by the age of 24. So why does that matter for the work that I do? What goes on between 14 and 24? A lot of families, parents, community members, they think that alcohol, marijuana, that use is just a rite of passage. It's the kind of thing just everybody does, not recognizing how mental health and substance use go hand in hand. 1 in 2 people with a substance use issue also face a mental health challenge, which is the point of the film. More than 21 million people in this country meet criteria for a diagnosis of co-occurring disorders. When I started the Harris Project on October 23rd, 2013, I started the only nonprofit in the nation dedicated to co-occurring disorders. 11 plus years later, we are still the only nonprofit in the entire nation that talks about co-occurring disorders. Common mental health disorders in teens, again, we're not diagnosing, just these are the things you know. Things like anxiety disorders, which are number 1, depressive disorders, ADHD, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Substances and substance use disorder, the addiction piece. Now remember, this is an opioid settlement fund grant, so I make sure that I talk about all of these things, but the list is never ending. So alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, smoking, vaping, edibles, the top ones, switching into stimulants, which a lot of people don't think about, but those caffeinated drinks, think about a high-achieving young person who has a lot on their plate. Somebody says, drink this, it'll be good, and then they can't go to sleep at night, so somebody else says, take this and it'll help you sleep. So young people enter this narrative through a variety of ways. Hallucinogens, prescription medication when you're using somebody else's medication. In the high school curriculum, we do a lot of like scenarios, and they learn about maybe, high achieving, really need to stay awake, borrowing somebody else's medication, and then maybe getting hooked on that medication, but then that kid's parents realize that there's medication missing, and then they're suddenly looking for drugs other ways, and that's an important thing to think about. Over-the-counter medications like sleep aids, cough syrup, pain relievers, and laxatives. I'm going to say this slide is going to change. There's going to be a new addition. Nitrous oxide has become a thing again. So something called Galaxy Gas, particularly the blue raspberry flavor. I've now met a mom she used to live on Long Island, she's now in Virginia. Her daughter just died of an overdose, and the more you can read, there's a lot of articles about this. It's basically what used to be called huffing, and now it's become a thing again. So, I don't show you the list to scare you. I show you the list to say, all of these are end results. If you educate and empower young people to think about why they should say no, that is the home run. Marijuana, New York State commercializes marijuana, not $1 in prevention programming. So it used to be you smoke marijuana, everybody knows. Then vaping started, the schools are locking the bathroom doors or they're taking the doors off the hinges because the kids are vaping. With this new commercialization, and it took them forever to get the licenses out, the undermarket came up, edibles are available everywhere. Edibles are a whole nother ball game. They're not controlled at all, and you can get them at gas stations, convenience stores, and so again, the goal here is to say, there's stuff out there, but if you understand this connection, you understand why you're saying no. I'm not a big chart and graph person. Partnership is, we put a couple in to make them happy. Here's this one. The bottom line is, back in the day, everybody was using, right? So the non-users were down there at like almost 0. Now, we're at the 63.9% range for not using in the past month. Lifetime non-use, 36.5%. For me, I care about the 37% that still are using. Because that 37% is at higher risk than ever before. In 2023, 70% of 8th graders never used anything, 54% of 10th graders, and 38% of 12th graders. I'm still concerned about those who are, because the younger you start using, the more detrimental it is to your brain. So why, we hear all the time, everything is riskier than it used to be, things aren't the same. I'm here to say that your young people actually want to know the why. They want to know the facts, they want to know the information, so when we give them this information, they're really interested, and they ask a lot of questions. In the curriculum, we give exit tickets at the end of each session. They write if they want to check in, if they have a friend who needs to check in today, next week, not at all, I'm good, and they also get to ask questions or share. The number of young people who are really grateful for concrete information would surprise a lot of the adults, because we think, between TikTok and it's like quick, they really invest and learn. So, what do we think you need to know? 30 times more nicotine in a disposable vape than compared to cigarettes. Vaping was not designed as a first-use product, it was designed to get old people to stop smoking. Instead, they created this opportunity to kind of really market to young people. 4 times higher level of THC in marijuana than 40 years ago, and obviously we've all heard about what's going on with fentanyl. So 7 out of 10 counterfeit pills are laced with fentanyl, which has a direct link to the 77% of adolescent overdose deaths linked to fentanyl. So when it comes to fentanyl, I will say this. There are signs all over the country. There are signs right here in Westchester County, 1 pill will kill. And what I say to you young people is that is true. You could go to a festival, somebody has a bag of pills, you say, let me take one, and you can die. More often than not, young people are not looking to take that risk. They are already addicted to something, they're already having challenges, and they are looking for ways to get things to continue to feel that. When I first started doing this work, opioids were rampant. Kids were writing prescriptions. If you had a parent who was a doctor, the Westchester was flooded. Then came legislation to stop the flow, and that was really good. What nobody anticipated was the counterfeit market. So the counterfeit market has created these opportunities to get things that young people think are going to help them, but they're not real, and that leads to the problem. Marketing strategies, particularly around vaping, the minty, fruity, sweet flavors, a lot of young people in the county have really helped promote legislation to change that. The variety of options for use, the bold packaging, the social media and influencers, the number of people who have invested as famous people in the marijuana market, and then they market it. And again, don't talk about the difference between a young brain and a fully developed brain is really sad, because there are people that you see during the Olympics, they're like really excited, you see like Martha Stewart. I'm like, you need to tell young people what's going on, and really it's just exploiting vulnerabilities. Like it used to be Joe Camel, and now it's just everybody else promoting this. When it comes to opioids, they're still out there. So me, a very much non-athlete, I have actually helped develop for the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association a whole protocol on mental health and wellness and the student athlete. Student athletes are a place where opioids happen. Why? Student athlete gets injured. Does anybody tell them that when they're prescribed opioids they can become addicted or dependent in 5 days or less? Does anyone say, with the break-in routine I might be depressed, maybe it's career ending, maybe I'm not practicing or hanging out with my friends, and now I'm taking something that numbs me out? So our goal is to also create safety nets around our young people, wisdom tooth removal, car accident surgery, taking somebody else's medication. My daughter dated a football player in college. He had hip surgery, major surgery. The number of people that wanted to know if he had extra pills was frightening. So that's the kind of thing when we talk about how we dispose of things safely, how we turn them back so that you don't have them available if you don't need them. Street and social media marketing, we know Snapchat and Discord and Instagram, these are those sort of undercover ways, and there's probably a bazillion apps that I don't even know about, where young people can get their hands on counterfeit pills. So what's the risk? Even for traditional things like Adderall, you're taking somebody else's medication, you might be taking a higher dose than what you would need, you might be mixing it with something else that you're doing, it might lead to other health complications and potentially overdose. If you take anything that's not prescribed for you, obviously you run a risk. They ask a lot of questions about it too. What's the impact of early use? First use before 18, 25% chance of developing a substance use disorder, and if you wait until after age 21, it goes down to 4%. So it's really important for our young people to understand that the longer they wait, the better off they are. And for parents and families, it's important to think about, there are some who think, well, if they practice drinking before they go to college, they'll be prepared. It actually increases tolerance and increases the likelihood of binge drinking. And I think, I don't know where it weaves in here, but I want to say it now. There have been a lot of reports, particularly about young women, and increases in cancer rates. And they're saying that it's directly tied to alcohol use. There's been a whole bunch of studies that just come out, I would say in the past 2 or 3 weeks, about that. So given the risks, now we talk about co-occurring disorders. So they know that everything is bad, right? So, ooh, it's all terrible. Why would you still enter the narrative? Self-medicating. They just want to feel okay. They're not looking to party. They just want to go to the party feeling comfortable in their own skin. Maybe something happened, they want to cope with unhealthy feelings. Maybe something happened, they had a breakup. Maybe there's something unhealthy going on in the household. They're finding ways just to feel okay. To relax, calm anxieties and stress. Really high-achieving kids are just like, okay, I have the practice, I have the research paper, I have the school play, I just need something to help me unwind. To address sleep and appetite challenges, to make socializing easier and appearing more confident or talkative. The curiosity, experimentation, and boredom, which we hear a lot about in the suburbs. Lack of immediate consequences. So in the beginning, nobody really noticed and I was good. And then all of a sudden they start seeing like the breaks and things are not going so well and they're kind of falling apart. I mean, there's only so long, even with many, like, you know, if you're misusing substances that you can maintain that level, eventually you're gonna crash out. And so you wanna be really, really aware of that. Peer pressure. I anecdotally ask every health class I'm in about peer pressure. Peer pressure, I have validated, is not what we think it is. Peer pressure is not the person at the party who's telling them that they have to do something. Peer pressure is their own internal, I need to do this because other people are doing this. We have created really a first of its kind opportunity to explore in deep, deep ways refusal skills. So your young people are really beginning to think about owning their narrative, their reason for saying no. They're not telling people that they're on an antibiotic so they can't drink tonight. They're not saying I'm in season with my sport so I can't do it. They're saying, you know, I have a little anxiety. And I know that it might feel good in the minute, but this can become a problem for me. I'm not going to judge you, but this is my why. Or, you know, I really care about my physical health and I know it can make it worse. And so we've spent a lot of time asking them what they think about this. So as we're rolling out this 3-session high school curriculum, health teachers have already said, we want to take your hypotheticals and make that a whole nother lesson, lesson number 4, and we want to do lesson 5 on refusal skills. Because the more we can get young people to practice and talk about this and feel comfortable, we switch everything up. And it's been really, really exciting to watch it happen. Learned behavior. Again, my job is not to say to you, you shouldn't do anything in front of your child. But you should be talking about how an adult doing certain things, drinking or whatever, that it's an adult fully developed brain and it's different for you. They need to understand what the differences are. I like this chart. I put this chart in. This is the only way that I can talk to you about the fact that drug overdose deaths, alcohol-induced deaths, and suicide deaths are viewed separately. They're all their own category. This is the first chart I've ever found that combines them. So in 2022, 207,827 people died of those 3 things combined. Now think about co-occurring disorders. Co-occurring disorders is the largest public health crisis that most people have never heard of. Because these individuals all have common root causes, and many, if not most of them, have co-occurring disorders. Risk factors, we deep dive with your young people on these. Genetics and family history, medical disability or illness, experiencing trauma or multiple losses, feeling unsafe, being isolated, bullying. Notice it doesn't say the bully or the bullied, both are at higher risk. So it's just as important to make sure that a bully is supported and gets the care that they need. Low access to resources, culture and stigma, high levels of stress, certain personality traits. Those who have more than one child, you know. You may have one who's really, really easy, or they're very much like you, so you can kind of figure out what they're gonna be like. And then you may have one, you're like, I don't know where this came from. So the bottom line is, you don't make it happen. They don't come with rule books. So it's important for you to know that there are resources available that you might need to access, particularly when you have a child that's very unlike you. My daughter, easiest child in the world, very mild-mannered, never pushed the limit. Harris, just as lovable and kind, but definitely pushed the limits in ways that I and my husband were very unprepared for. Lack of or difficulty using coping skills, the substance use impact on the brain, and having an existing or emerging mental health challenge. On the protective side, all those good things, the healthy habits, the regular physical exams, avoiding substances, having a routine, having goals and purpose, spirituality, taking tech breaks, confidence, healthy boundaries, self-awareness, positive peer support, interest in hobbies, regular school attendance. Number one protective factor, feeling close to a trusted adult. Maybe it's you as a parent, maybe you as a parent, it's that you're that for somebody else's kid. Maybe it's another relative, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a social worker, maybe it's a health teacher. We really work with them on identifying their trusted adult. Why? Because there's nothing like being prepared. So you go to a party on Saturday, you're concerned about one of your friends, it's not something where you're calling 911, but you as a friend are not feeling okay. Who am I going to talk to about that? Is it somebody at school that I feel safe? Does that person not have somebody? So this ability to get them to proactively think about their connections is super important. Technology use, we include this, why? Because the first line is without a doubt the most ironic thing I've seen. More than 3 hours a day, higher risk of mental health challenges. Teens spend 5 hours a day on technology, which means that unlike any other time in history, every one of them is at a higher risk just from having that phone in their hands. I know that they're maybe doing something here because I saw the little things hanging in the classrooms. I will say Bronxville, shout out Bronxville. You walk into the classroom, you immediately, that like the shoe clear thing, your phone goes right in. Everybody knows they can get it if they need it, but do you have it?
They have them in all the classrooms.
That's great, so yeah, so it's kind of nice because it just shows that you really focused on what's going on. Why? Because when you spend too much time on technology, disrupts sleep, facilitates cyberbullying, leads to lack of exercise, increases loneliness. You think you're more connected and you never feel more alone. Particularly for young girls, mental health impact, a lot of comparing body image, clothing, style, and obviously we know easier to get pills and substances. So you're not going to get the hypotheticals, although part of me feels like maybe we should have them in here, but you should know. Pathway number one, a person has an existing or developing mental health challenge, misuses substances to self-medicate. So just trying to reduce stress, sleep better, they think they're helping themselves, they have no idea that that's what's going to happen. Pathway number two, person has a predisposition to both. This used to be, back in the day, in the beginning, a chicken and an egg. You don't really care which came first, but they're both happening at the same time. That may be genetics, environment, biological factors. It doesn't really matter because they both have the risk of happening. And then, again, in the beginning, 1,000 kids in assembly, I'm that presenter. And at this point, they've heard a lot about Harris. The presentation was a lot different. But they were thinking, so I'm not part of the 49.5% with the mental health challenge, but I can help my friends who are struggling with their mental health make sure that they don't use substances, but I'm good. So the third pathway is the one that impacts all our young people. Person develops a mental health challenge due to brain changes caused by use. So just the act of drinking, smoking, vaping, when your brain is still developing, is problematic. So particularly in high amounts, particularly in the higher concentrations that exist now, brain changes from use. Not fully developed until your late 20s. The supply is riskier, higher potency than ever before, so your brain has a much quicker chance of things going wrong. Substance use can make those mental health challenges develop or make them worse. And substance use and even trauma can in fact impact healthy brain growth and development. So that's an important thing to think about, because a lot of times it's just about the mental health component, it's this direction. And then I've been asked by young people in the class, they'll say things like, well, marijuana never killed anybody. So in Westchester County, we have an integrated treatment protocol for co-occurring disorders. You can take the information in the back. But I get, because I brought this whole thing to the county, I participate in a lot of the clinical consultation meetings. The number of young people in the county who have developed first episode psychosis from marijuana use with no mental health conditions is frightening. And so we are not doing anybody a service by not sharing the risk. And with young people, we talk about the fact that your brains are elastic. For the most part, when you stop using, it can go back to where it was, and this is a really good thing. But there are a certain percentage of young people where the damage is much more significant. And I'm not saying it to scare them, it's just that it's actually the truth. So this is the part where I tell them, substance use can interfere with healthy brain development, but for the most part, your brains are elastic. When you go back to non-use, your brain goes back to where it should be. Trauma, we used to think about trauma as, I lived through an earthquake, there was a fire. Now we know that trauma has a much greater impact. So abuse, witnessing abuse, neglect, grief and loss, accident or injury, natural disasters, discrimination, feeling stressed or unsafe, undiagnosed or unsupported mental health challenges. The last one was an important one for me, because I thought of trauma as all of those other things. And I looked at my own households and I thought, well, Harris certainly didn't experience trauma. And then I realized that every time a child with a mental health condition went to school and got in trouble because they couldn't self-regulate, there was trauma. Because he didn't go to school and think, today's the day that I want to get in trouble, today's the day that I won't be able to sit still. And so every time there was that judgment around that and he really couldn't control it, you start thinking less of yourself. And that's part of what you're feeling when you watch the film, is that people are watching you, you're not regulated. The young woman who you saw scream at the teacher in the case study, that was her real experience. We didn't know when we cast her that she had recovered from co-occurring disorders, but she did, and she said that was a very real experience. She would get in trouble, she'd have a hard time keeping it together, and she didn't know that it was traumatic for her to do that. The key protective factors. So that trusted adult, reliable and consistent support, emotional safety, guidance and mentorship, the positive role model that you can be, active listening. We talk a lot about being ready. When you ask somebody how they're doing, do it when you have some time, because you never know if that's going to be the moment that they're ready to let it all out. So you want to be prepared. You want to know what you'll do. One of the things that I had a problem with early on was, and I don't know if Eastchester might have brought it in, it's hidden in plain sight. They set up like a high school student's room, and you find all the places where things can be hidden. My biggest fear with that program was that if you didn't have a plan for what you would do if you found it, a lot of times your first reaction is just react, right? And so if you just react, then you get the response of, it's my friend's, it's not mine, or this is the first time it's ever happened. And if you're angry enough, you might close the door to that connected conversation, which is what you really want. So I also say, if you've ever had that conversation with your child and you maybe overreacted, it's okay to say, I was afraid. Like, I think we need a reset on this, and let's talk about this a different way. I want to be able to support you. Active listening and advocacy. So the impact on the family, there's distress, shame and embarrassment. That's that stigma piece that we talk a lot with your young people about. Isolation. You stop going to things, you start hanging out, you're hanging out with your friends the same way because you have the child who people are talking about and you kind of feel a certain way. Reduced advocacy, you think, you would go in and advocate even more, but now you're thinking like, is the administration at the school thinking that I'm not a good parent? And so we do this to level the playing field. We want you to know you didn't cause this, and you want to be able to lean into the positive supports at school. Because you don't want to delay treatment. The earlier you can intervene, the better off you are. When I started, I was at Hendrick Hudson High School. I walked in, I sat with the principal, and he said, "So Stephanie, this is really interesting. I could look at my senior class and know who might be dead in a year or two. If you can do anything to impact that, I'm all in, but give me something. Some research, something that says that, like, this is worthwhile." Now, remember what I said at the beginning, there's no other co-occurring disorders curriculum or conversations anywhere. I was like, where am I gonna find something? So I put on my lawyer brain, and I found a study that said the time between the onset of a mental health disorder and the development of a subsequent substance use disorder is a key window of opportunity where co-occurring disorders can be prevented. That was enough. Every grant I've ever written relies on this study, and the bottom line is 90% of people with co-occurring disorders, the mental health disorder came first. Why wouldn't we want to educate and empower everybody about this? This is the relationship that everybody needs to know. Because the mental health disorder can arise in early adolescence. I'm going to tell you this is older research, the window is getting closer. Substance use disorder can develop 5 to 10 years later around the age of 21, but we know these windows are getting closer, this is coming down. I like the window, I think it's cute, but it really, I will see if there's ever any additional research on this, but that is pretty much the case. Potential warning signs, because we feel like it's important for you as family members to know what to look for. Family or personal history, mental health or substance use disorders raises the risk if they're avoiding friends and family. So by that I mean, there's a family barbecue and their friends are going to the mall. It's not that they want to go with their friends and they don't want to do the family thing, it's that they want to be in their room. So you may be arguing about what they're doing, but if they don't want to do anything and that's atypical for them, your spidey senses should be tingling. Struggling to focus, finish tasks, or make decisions. That indecisiveness is sometimes a little spidey sense thing that something's going on. Using substances when alone. Changes in physical health, weight gain, weight loss, hygiene, appearance, sleeping and eating habits. Extreme mood swings and bursts of energy. So it's the two directions. Kid who is really kind of not okay and is suddenly like euphoric and everything is good, just as concerning as the opposite. A lot of times with suicide, people, everything was going great. They had been depressed, but now everything seemed like it was going well. That is a warning sign, and you should just pay attention. Loss of interest in hobby, school, and responsibilities. Again, as another suburban parent, child is playing baseball, and you have dreams of major leagues, and they don't really like baseball so much, and now they're playing the drums. Okay. That does not mean that your spidey senses should be tingling. That just means that you're not aligned with what they want to do and what you want them to do. It's when they suddenly go from doing all the typical things and now they're not doing anything. Impulsive and risky behavior. We notice a lot of that when they're young, but we also notice a lot of that when they're getting their driver's license. So if they're getting pulled over for driving too fast, if you're hearing kind of the buzz that maybe they're out driving with friends and they're moving quickly, things to pay attention to, and obviously self-harm or suicidal thoughts. So now, my story. So we didn't know when we should put it in, we didn't know how we should put it in, so Partnership had this set up in their office, and this is my story which you will watch so that you can get a sense of, no matter where you are in the country, you would know why we do the work we do.
So we're going to bring Harris into the room with us. This is Harris's story and my family's story, one of millions that take place all over the country. So Harris was 3 years old when he was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. He received the ADHD diagnosis when he was in 8th grade. We were the lucky ones. Harris was getting mental health support throughout his life. But you know, a good-looking, popular, social, athletic kind of kid like him, not one professional ever said, be careful around substances. That could be a spiral that you go down really quickly. That could have been the first and best opportunity for things to be different. Instead, 8th grade came. He had stopped playing soccer because his anxiety disorder was so bad. He was doing different things. He was in different places. He was seeing a therapist. I was on the school board in my community. And as 8th grade unfolded, his behaviors became more and more unpredictable. My husband and I were very concerned about his mental health and well-being. Towards the end of the year, I resigned from the school board. We began homeschooling Harris, and we went to what would be the last appointment with that professional. He said, "Harris has become more than I could manage. You need to find help somewhere else. And by the way, he's been smoking marijuana. I thought he was just experimenting, but I think he might have a problem." What I didn't know then, and what I certainly know now, is that professional really didn't understand co-occurring disorders. Because if you look it up, anxiety disorders, young people, and marijuana use can be incredibly detrimental. It can have a very negative impact on his mental health and well-being. So we switched professionals. Harris went and got fully assessed and diagnosed with the ADHD. He went on medication for the first time. He returned to our high school, and things went really, really well. He was seeing a therapist. He went back to playing soccer. It was all league and all section, and we started thinking that this situation that had happened in 8th grade was in the rearview mirror. But we were wrong. You see, Harris stopped seeing that professional because the medication was working and he was feeling good and we thought things were okay and the professional said, "We're good." And so instead, when ACT time came and SATs and stress and pressure and am I playing college soccer, the anxiety came back. It overwhelmed the medication. There had been trauma for our family in 8th grade when he went through those struggles. He didn't really want to tell anybody. He went to a party in my community. Prescription pills were available on the table. He took one of those pills, and for us, that's when I could say the game was over. In the next year and a half, Harris had been in 4 substance use inpatient programs, 2 substance use outpatient programs. Each program said, Harris has co-occurring disorders, and each program said they treated it. Instead, what would happen is Harris would be put in a group, not based on what brought him to use. He wasn't in a group with other young people with anxiety disorders and ADHD. He was just in a group based on when you walk through the door. So he would sit in that circle and he could fix you, he would talk about you, he'd make a face at you, and he would never talk about him. He would say to us, they keep saying remember life before substances. I love my family, my friends, my house, my life. But my brain works a million miles an hour. If they don't help me address my mental health, how am I going to get out of here and not have the same cycle repeat? And unfortunately, that was what happened for us, because ultimately at the age of 19, Harris was gone.
So that's why I do what I do, because I feel like you don't know what you don't know. The number of young people through the years who've said to me, so I've been in therapy for like 3 years. When was somebody going to say to me that I'm at a higher risk for addiction just because I have an anxiety disorder? Like, why are they keeping that a secret? So I actually do work. I presented with the developer of the program we use, the Encompass, for the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, because we believe that pediatric psychologists, psychiatrists should really be educating families about the risks. And that's kind of like, when I speak to young people, I think for them the most exciting thing is that this is something, there's very few things that are new, that you can really like pave the way to learn about. So actually the Community Fund, which is another group that promoted this event tonight, after I had done the presentations for Eastchester and Bronxville, Tuckahoe hasn't had the student ones yet, they did an event on Super Bowl Sunday, an hour with me, and at 4 o'clock on Super Bowl Sunday, I thought like 5 or 6 kids would come. 45 kids came. Most of them had had the curriculum. Like Tuckahoe had the fewest number, Eastchester and Bronxville were always like, you did the curriculum, we want to do more. And so I'm telling you that change really starts with our young people. And for the adults, don't worry that it wasn't a big turnout tonight. We're actually starting to do our athletic games again, where we want to meet the community where they are. And so all the field announcements, all of the things around sports really are designed to bring the conversation to the place where people show up. So what can you do? Learn about co-occurring disorders. That was part of tonight that really mattered. Model healthy attitudes, have open and honest and frequent conversations. try to delay as long as possible. Know your child's level of risk, get the intervention early, be the trusted adult for your child's or other people's children, that's our Code Connects, be the link, hashtags, be aware of your own history and your own relationship with mental health and substances. Because what we want to do is break intergenerational cycles. We often think that we've gone through experiences, particularly if they're bad, about mental health, substance, it's never gonna happen. You really sometimes have to be consciously aware of what these things look like. So for our young people, we say, the adults in your life may not have known. Oftentimes somebody will say, well, you know, my mom, my aunt, they struggle with depression and they also drink a lot. Like, I have depression, how am I not gonna turn into them? They probably didn't know that their depression would be made worse by drinking. You now know that, so now you can say, maybe I need to talk to somebody, maybe I need to get a therapist. That's how we begin to break those cycles. Early intervention can improve outcomes. Take that action early and often. And as we say, you have the power to change that whole cycle. It starts with our young people, but it also starts with the adults in their lives. It's important when we talk about modeling healthy behavior, if you're not feeling okay, it's really good to say to your kid, you know, I'm gonna go talk to somebody because I wanna be the best me that I can be. It creates that opportunity for them to know there's nothing to be ashamed of. Because we balance those risk and protective factors, the family history, the loneliness, the trauma, against the healthy coping skills, the engaging in after-school activities, and the trusted adult. What about hosting? We're actually creating an entire campaign around this topic. I see the ugh face.
I can't. It's just, I feel like they always want to like go to somebody's house and it's scary.
Yes.
It's scary.
So, in the beginning, I would refuse to be on a panel with the police department. Not because I don't like the police department, but I felt like everything they said about hosting was that the police were gonna swoop in, you're gonna get raided, you're gonna be on the cover of whatever the local paper is, and that's why you shouldn't host, right? That's the traditional view. When adults allow children to drink and use substances in their home, they do not know what door they're going to open for their child or somebody else's child. Is that child struggling with their mental health? Have they had trauma? Are you the person who is now going to start this cycle that you never anticipated? You don't know what the trajectory is going to be. So what can you do more positively? Prioritize youth health, mental health, and the developing brain. Provide fun and healthy environment for your children and their friends. Set that positive example by saying, we'd love to have you, there's not gonna be any substances. Anecdotally, I didn't talk about my daughter much tonight, sometimes I talk about her more than others, but she was a senior in high school when Harris died. In Ardsley, the seniors do a senior review, it's like the play, it's in January, Harris died in October. Not one parent in her grade stepped up to have the party. I had a really good basement, had a lot of parties in my house. I was always the person where you couldn't use anything in my house. And I said to her, I can't be stressed about this. Like, this is too much responsibility. They need to know that I'm happy to have them, but I don't want to even think about this. We're going to be up and down. That single-handedly was the best event that their grade ever had. With it was like 100 and something kids in my basement, and nobody thought anything about any substances at all, and they had the most incredible time. And I think that that's part of what we lose, that we think that our young people think that they have to do something in order to have a good time. We need to really reframe that. You want to avoid, obviously, providing alcohol or other substances. Obviously, we're telling you it's against the law. We know it's against the law, but more importantly, it's not protective to teach your child to drink responsibly. It just doesn't work. If you say, what about in Europe? They drink when they're much younger. Look up the rates of binge drinking and alcoholism in Europe. It is not the thing that we all are led to believe. They really do have a lot of problems with it. So this, to me, is something that we're pulling out a campaign for adults, intergenerational cycles, and the hosting, because we think that this is really something that we need to recalibrate around. What are you already doing? If you're worried, have the conversation. Keep calm, come from a place of love and care. Center your child's health and well-being. listen carefully and non-judgmentally, ask about the why, open-ended questions, share expectations and be direct, explore refusal skills and exit strategies, don't force the conversation, particularly if they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, nothing good's gonna happen, or if they're under the influence. Don't get defensive. You make this happen, circumstances arise, something's going on, the calmer you are, the more the door stays open. And don't necessarily take what they say at face value. Like, you don't wanna just go in and out, you wanna take a break if you need to, but you wanna revisit if you're concerned. Do they need outside help? Nope, you're good? Yes? When it comes to co-occurring disorders, Westchester County is the only place in the entire country where we have 5 agencies and more than 50 clinicians who deliver integrated therapy for co-occurring disorders. So that means once-a-week therapy, no groups, medication for mental health or opioid use disorder if it's clinically indicated. It means they're working on their reasons for use, what their mental health symptomology is, and it's been really successful. This is my subtle pitch time, particularly for the PTA people who are in the room. I know there's no school board people here tonight, but our school-based mental health satellites in Westchester County that are up and functioning at the high school level who have implemented Encompass have had incredibly wonderful success rates. Andrus is in one of our high schools. Andrus was the last agency to enter our Encompass protocol. We've got 6 agencies, well, 5.5. And they had the first 1 clinician, the first 2 students were referred to Encompass because they caught using substances at school. So it was sort of like an alternative to suspension. They were assessed, they met criteria. The next 12 came from referrals from their friends. That, my friends, is game-changing. Because when your child goes to residential treatment or a wilderness program, and they're coming back to the community, all you hear about is people, places, and things. They have to find new people to hang out with. They have to change what they're doing because their friends are in the same situation as them, and that's not going to be good. Well, what happens if you recalibrate the whole ecosystem and their friends are now in recovery as well? That's what we're looking for. And so these opportunities we now have to have school-based mental health satellites that are also utilizing Encompass have gone really, really well. Accessing resources, family members or family friends, school staff, community and religious leaders, others like coaches and friends, family and neighbors, mental and medical health professionals, and first responders. We have not presented to your staff yet. I will say that typically it happens organically. We have stickers, we have pins for you tonight, but we're getting our stickers in. They ask if they can put the sticker on their computer. They want students to know that they're a safe space. I've had the math department from Tuckahoe came over to me at the end of the presentation and like, thank you for reminding us why we went into teaching. Like, it's not just about the achievement, it's about keeping our kids safe and healthy. And so these are really great opportunities to look at the conversation. This is the flyer for Encompass, it's in the back. These are the agencies that collaborate and are part of it. I got small grants to start it, and now the county has a federal grant that we're part of. There's a wraparound coordinator, so even without a school-based mental health satellite, you get Encompass in the community. You call Lorena. She was one of the first clinicians certified in Encompass. She left her well-paying job as a director of youth and teen programming and is now our wraparound coordinator, one-stop shop. You call her. We have invitation to change for the family and Encompass for our young people. This is a little about me and our organization. Partnership to End Addiction has been a wonderful partner in this because they are leaders in prevention research, but they already were leaning into the co-occurring disorders work. You have your action plan in the back.
Quick question, are we not doing the satellite, I'm sorry, I maybe said this at the beginning, I came in. Are we doing the satellite program at Eastchester?
You are not,
Well, I can actually,
Taping
first I'll take that point, but I just want to thank Steph Dammy. What an incredible presenter.
Oh, yeah.
So compelling. I mean, it's obviously just the way you articulate and construct this and allow all of us to enter this and think about its application to our own lives, our children, our students. It's really, really powerful. I know the students who had a chance to see Stephanie about a month ago were just so blown away by the work. In fact, the Wellness Club reached out to me today because they want to have a CODA event at a flag football game this spring. So you sort of alluded to that in this presentation, and the synchronicity was like beyond me not saying anything. So we're just so grateful to have you, and I can't wait to get you in front of the faculty. And honestly, just the students, the whole student body, I think you're amazing. In regards to that question, it looks like we're moving in that direction, so which is great news. Part of the presentation on the budget to the board on Tuesday night had that component in it, and I think it went really, really well. And it's just, making it a sort of, every set of place has its own way of you nesting it in there, and I think we're finding the right space, but more than anything, the need is so prevalent. And I think what was pointed out is it's really the ability to sort of like be a nexus point for all of these services. There's so many resources available, but navigating it is like a Four Seasons concierge. You need someone who's incredibly skilled and knows just the right thing, and that's really what we're excited, and I think we're gonna see that moving forward quite judiciously over the next several months, so.
Oh, yeah, that's really
great.
solid.
That's really,
There
yeah.
were some behind the scenes talks, I was wondering if they're coming to fruition, so that's great.
Yeah, we've been working hard on it, so I think we're in a good place, and no doubt, and it's credit to Stephanie for all the work she's done, and the CARE Coalition, you guys have been amazing partners as well, and I just feel so fortunate for all the support. So I will leave, if you guys want to chat with Stephanie, or you have any questions, I want to honor the evening, and we're going to post this online so people can see it. We're going to also write up a whole article really highlighting and pulling out some of the key pieces from this presentation that are noteworthy, and we'll blast that out to the whole community as well. So thank you both of you for being here tonight.
And so next, coming up for the student, just so you know, our youth summit is on March 27th.
That's right.
So the schools zoom in as teams, which is real. So pre-pandemic, it was at the county center. Then once the pandemic happened, we started doing it. First it was virtual when they were home, which was a little weird. But then we had this idea when they couldn't travel out of their building, we would do it where each school would zoom in. Well, when each school zoomed in, you could create bigger teams. Like the county center, you could only send 5 or 6 students. Here we have up to some schools have 20 to 25 students. We send all the turnkey activities, all of the programming, and then they get to do activities during the month of April. Harris's birthday was April 8th, so we celebrate CODA month in April, and they do a ton of activities. Bill, what you may not know is we're also with the curriculum now. There's going to be more of a research pilot for the next round, but we're also going to be working with Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. We're doing an intro session on March 13th, and we're doing our first training for health teachers, phys ed teachers, social workers, student assistance counselors, so they can begin turnkeying the programming. Your health teachers were very instrumental in saying yes, because the really cool thing is, there have not been a lot of updates to the health curriculum in a lot of years, so they developed their own curriculum in a lot of ways. This they found was so easy for them to deliver. It's activities, there's a Jeopardy game at the end. They're like, this is great, and the kids loved it, so it doesn't have to be me doing it. And to scale it, you really want the people that they trust being able to do it. So we're creating a little collaborative around it, and so I'm hoping that you guys participate in that as well.
Yeah, actually, I reserved the room today for the summit.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know it's at 9 to 11
Yes.
on the 27th. So thank you again. This was amazing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Let's take